Welcome back to Klepper's Corner. Today in history. It's January 21st, a date that, historically speaking, behaves like it woke up, drank 3 espressos, kicked open the door of the calendar and said, "Let's cause chaos." This is a day where kings lose their heads, revolutions lose their founders, nuclear weapons fall out of airplanes, and women lose the right to smoke indoors, but gain the world's largest protest. It's a day where technology races ahead, politics melts down, and history asks, what if we tried everything all at once? So let's dive in before January 21st throws something else at us. Segment 1, The King Without a Kingdom. January 21st, 1793. King Louis XVI is executed by guillotine, officially ending the French monarchy and beginning the era of oops, we may have radicalized too hard. The French Revolution had been chaotic for years, but on this day, it went full HBO finale. Louis is rolled out in a fully guarded carriage because even when you're being executed, apparently you still get chauffeured service if you're royalty. He tries to give a last speech, but the drums drown him out. Basically, the 18th century version of being muted on Zoom. Then the guillotine drops, and France collectively goes, well, we can't take this back. People dip handkerchiefs into his blood like it's the world's worst souvenir shop. Meanwhile, monarchies across Europe scream into a pillow because they know they're next on history's hit list. And if this sounds dramatic, that's because it is. January 21st really knows how to set a tone. Segment 2, Lenin leaves the chat. Exactly 131 years later, January 21st, 1924, Vladimir Lenin dies, ending the life of a man whose political ideas inspired revolutions, governments, purges, statues, and enough propaganda posters to wallpaper the moon. Lenin had been declining for years, but when he finally passes away, Stalin sees an opportunity the way a cat sees an unattended glass of water. Trotsky, Lenin's obvious successor, conveniently cannot attend the funeral because Stalin accidentally gave him the wrong date, proving that Soviet power struggles were 90% ideology and 10% calendar fraud. Lenin's body is embalmed and displayed in a mausoleum, creating the Lenin cult, because apparently the Soviet Union decided, yes, let's keep the founder forever, like a revolutionary snow globe. Millions visit, even in Arctic temperatures, because nothing says devotion like frostbite for communism. And thus, Lenin departs, Stalin rises, and January 21st says, let's do leadership transitions, but make them terrifying. Segment 3, Vietnam heat, Arctic cold, and 4 nuclear bombs. Jump to January 21st, 1968. The Cold War decides to multitask. In Vietnam, the Battle of Khe Sanh begins, one of the bloodiest, most anxiety-ridden sieges of the war. A North Vietnamese artillery shell blows up the Marines' ammo dump, turning the sky into fireworks no one asked for. Westmoreland panics, LBJ obsesses, and the Marines basically live underground for 77 days. It's tense, dramatic, and exactly the kind of thing that makes future historians sigh heavily. Meanwhile, on the same day, a US B-52 bomber tries to land in Thule, Greenland, while carrying 4 hydrogen bombs. Yes, 4. Because when the Cold War made mistakes, it made big mistakes. A fire breaks out, the crew ejects, and the plane crashes into the ice, scattering radioactive debris across the Arctic. Cleanup crews scrape plutonium-covered ice at minus 76 degrees Fahrenheit, proving, once again, that global politics frequently results in unpaid overtime. Denmark freaks out because it didn't even know nuclear weapons were allowed on its territory, to which the U.S. essentially responds, well, surprise? So on this day in 1968, the war raged in the jungle. The ice glowed in the Arctic, and January 21st said, balance is important. So let's do catastrophes in 2 climates. Segment 4, the Nautilus and the need for speed. January 21st also moonlights as Tech Innovation Day. In In 1954, the USS Nautilus, the world's first nuclear-powered submarine, launches. Before this, submarines were basically underwater tents with battery-powered flashlights. Nautilus changed everything. It could stay submerged for months, travel fast, and scare the pants off any Navy officer still using diesel. Admiral Rickover, the father of nuclear propulsion, becomes the proud parent of a machine that will live underwater longer than most people stay committed to gym memberships. Then, in 1976, the Concorde makes its first commercial flight. Europe stands up and says, "We're going to fly across the Atlantic at Mach 2 because regular airplanes are for peasants." And they did, at 60,000 feet, while serving champagne. The only downside? Fuel economy that would bankrupt the sun. The Concorde burns a ton of fuel per passenger, and America banned sonic boom flights over land, which is basically America saying, it's cool, just don't do it here. So the Concorde becomes the most glamorous airplane in history. The Nautilus becomes the deadliest fish in the sea. And January 21st proves it loves technology almost as much as it loves chaos. Segment 5. Women smoking, women marching. January 21st has opinions about women. In 1908, New York City passes the Sullivan Ordinance, banning women from smoking in public places. Not banning men, of course, because the law apparently believed smoke molecules could detect gender. A woman named Katie Mulcahy refuses to comply, gets fined, refuses to pay, and becomes an icon before memes even existed. The mayor vetoes the ordinance weeks later because it is, scientifically speaking, stupid. Fast forward to 2017. January 21st becomes the date of the largest single-day protest in American history, the Women's March. Millions fill cities around the world. Washington, D.C. floods with pink hats, homemade signs, and enough determination to power the grid. The message is loud. We're here, we're paying attention, and some of you in government need to stop talking forever. It sparks political movements, inspires new candidates, and turns January 21st into a day of resistance rather than restriction. It's almost like history saw the 1908 ordinance and said, yeah, let's fix that. Segment 6. Cars, Kiwanis, nations, novels, treaties, and inaugurations. January 21st also covers everything else in the human experience, from car races to scripture to presidents freezing on the Capitol steps. In 1911, the first Monte Carlo rally begins. 23 drivers racing across frozen Europe to Monaco, where judges award points for speed, endurance, and elegance. Because nothing says motorsport like being penalized for mud on your tires. In 1915, Kiwanis is founded, originally a business club, until members said, what if instead of selling things to each other, we tried helping people? And thus, one of the world's great service organizations was born. In the Dominican Republic, January 21st celebrates Our Lady of Altagracia, the protector of the nation, tied to a 1691 victory believed to be inspired by divine intervention. In Barbados, it's Errol Barrow Day, honoring the island's first prime minister and architect of independence. In 1919, Ireland's first Dáil meets and declares independence, sparking a revolution and reminding the British Empire that colonies have feelings too. In 1789, America publishes its first novel, The Power of Sympathy, which includes seduction, scandal, and moral lessons. So basically, early American literature launched with a tabloid plot. And because January 20th inaugurations sometimes land on Sundays, several presidents, Eisenhower, Reagan, Obama, held historic public ceremonies on January 21st. From frigid temperatures to national holidays, these inaugurations prove America loves tradition right up until it becomes inconvenient. Finally, in 1720, the Treaty of Stockholm ends Sweden's time as a great power and basically hands the Baltic region over to Prussia and Russia, which is a diplomatic way of saying, thanks for playing, Sweden. January 21st contains the rise of nations, the fall of kings, the empowerment of protests, the roar of engines, and the silent glow of radioactive snow. It is a date that insists on being noticed. In conclusion, January 21st is the historical equivalent of a group project, where every member showed up with something different. One brought revolution, one brought aviation, one brought radioactive ice, one brought monarchy beheading energy, and one brought 7 million people marching through the streets. It's a day that reminds us history is never one thing. It's messy, loud, ingenious, terrifying, and occasionally wearing a pink hat. And tomorrow, history will do it all over again, because it always does.